Welcome back, everybody. We are just having a fantastic day. We're a little behind schedule, so we're going to jump right into Dustin Nielson, TSN1260 Edmonton, joining us. We went a little long with John Scott. We had NFL players in here dropping gear off. It's been a great day, Dustin. Have you been having a great day in Edmonton? How's things up there with you?
We had a pretty good show today. I won a game on the Tecmo Super Bowl machine. So all in all, Rod, it's been a great start. And it's not even noon yet, so I'm having a pretty good day.
You're going to be ready for a nap right away, Dusty. Listen, I'm wearing this in honor of you and also because our other two guests, John Scott and Alan May, are both Edmonton products. But a big night tonight. And I want to get your analysis on this, if you don't mind. You saw John Scott saying that the Leafs have not been challenged. They're romping through the Scotia North Division, and once the playoffs hit, they're going to die fast. I thought the Oilers were going to give them a bigger test than they have. I assume you thought so too.
Definitely. I definitely thought with the way the Oilers had been playing, I thought that this would at least be a rather competitive 3-game set. And we'll see what happens tonight. But, they'd won 11-13 going in. And even in the 2 games they lost, I think one was to Winnipeg and one was to Vancouver. I liked the way they played. I thought they actually pushed the pace. Even in that first game against Toronto, when they fell behind, I thought they were still going. I didn't think they really gave up. So I liked the spot they were in. I think because of that, the fan base here is giving them a little bit of extra leash after losing these two. The issue is how they lost them, and to be shut out by the opposing team's second string and third string goaltenders when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl is just unheard of. I mean, nobody saw that coming, but I give credit where credit is due. I think Toronto's played 2 very tight defensive games over the last 2, and we'll see if Dave Tippett here tonight and see if they can take advantage of it.
Jason in Red Deer's watching, and he says Austin Matthews and Freddie Anderson both confirmed to play tonight. And when we looked into that, they're confirmed on the lineup. We're not confirmed that Freddie Anderson's going to start, but it would not look good on the Oilers if Toronto played 3 different goalies and won 3 games. That wouldn't be good, would it, Dusty?
Right, we already talked about this jokingly. We said that, the Leafs might bring in Freddie Anderson and maybe he'll get a shutout too. And that would have to be the first time in NHL history a team has shut out an opponent 3 straight games with 3 different goaltenders. So, I would think some offense is coming tonight. We saw Dave Tippett, if we're talking about the Lions for tonight. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is back with Leon Draisaitl and Kyler Yamamoto for essentially the first time in a year. They didn't go to them in the play-in until the final 7 minutes. Actually looked good. For some reason, Dave Tippett has wanted to stay away from this, even though last year when they were together, I think they played 23 games together. They had 28 5-on-5 goals for and 8 goals against. Like, they were absolutely dominant 5-on-5 when together last year. So it took back-to-back shutouts at the hands of the Leafs to get the job done. But Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto finally reunited for the game tonight.
Okay, I have my own questions, but the viewers do, because we got a lot of Oiler fans here. Dustin, you and I have talked about that before. So I'm going to turn it over to the viewers a little bit here. Darren Bradley's watching on Facebook. He says, is Stalock going to replace Koskinen's $4.5 million salary? This is the goalie the Oilers claimed off waivers the other day. What are the plans for Stalock?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's got to get through quarantine, but, I've said a couple of times since they picked him up here that I don't think he would come in and do any worse than what Koskinen has done so far. The thing with Koskinen, though, is that he does have a partial no trade. Not that anybody's really going to be lining up to get their hands on him. So you could see a situation here where they have 3 goaltenders, and I know that's not ideal, but Mike Smith's been terrific so far. So if Mike Smith can continue that, I think he'll continue to get the majority of the run. But I think Stalock can come in here and, if given an opportunity, like let's say Mike Smith gets hurt, I don't think it's crazy to think that Alex Stalock can come in, play well, and end up being a 1-2 punch with Mike Smith down the stretch. So, Koskinen was not good last game. I mean, depending on who you talk to, I see some folks in Toronto who've been labeling it as a sweet backhand snipe by Nylander. But let's be honest, Koskinen has to stop that shot. But the 2 games prior to that, he made 40 saves in each of them and picked up wins. So they needed some goaltending depth because they've been trying to rotate other guys through in that 3 spot. Skinner was there. They claimed Grosnick for a little bit. So I don't think goaltending depth will hurt, but I also think Stalock could end up factoring in here at some point this season.
Dustin, growing up in Cranny, were you a goalie?
I played goal for 6 years.
Yeah, you strike me as a goalie. I was one too, by the way. It's a compliment. And I'm just thinking, I look at Marc-Andre Fleury, and they're talking about him. He's taking the ball and running it with Leonard out. And look at his numbers. .941 save percentage, sub 3.0 GAA. It's unbelievable at age 36. Is that too high of a standard to hold Jacob Markstrom to and the Oilers goalies and everybody else? Like, why is it so hard at Edmonton to get somebody to play consistent? Because it's just, I gave up on Mike Smith and Koskinen last year. I was defending them all year, and it's to a point where they're so inconsistent, you can't. Like, how do you go into the playoffs not knowing what you're going to have on a nightly basis?
That's tough. I think that's probably what will end up happening. I know I was listening coming home from our station today, and they were talking about on Low Tide Show, talking about, can they trade for a goalie? Can they trade for a goalie? And I'm sure Ken Holland would like to. We know Holland was in on Markstrom, and he gave him a pretty good contract offer. Ken Holland understands that they need an upgrade in net, and I think the most reasonable way to go about it, or what we should expect, is the Oilers to address this in free agency, because they're going to have more cap space than they've had over the last few years. So that would be one thing that I would look at. I mean, for the Oilers, I think best case scenario is that if you're going to have successful goaltending in the postseason, it's probably going to have to be Mike Smith getting on a heater. And I mean, we've seen Mike Smith for stages of his career go on incredible runs. Is it crazy to think he can do that when he's 38? Probably, but at the same time, he started this season extremely well, and his numbers have been through the roof, albeit in a limited sample size. But we're talking, 6-7 games now for Mike Smith. So I'm sure, and I mean, I'm kind of like you. I mean, last year, I was pretty pro Mike Smith, and then they put him in the game one of the bubble, and it kind of backfired. This year, I said I was going to try to say less negative things about Mikko Koskinen, because I've been pretty hard on him since they gave him that ridiculous contract, and he's not helping me out a lot of nights, which is really frustrating me. So we'll see if they can get it sorted out. But I don't think there's a goalie being choppered in here to help things.
No, there's none available. I know the trade deadline's coming up, and they'll be looking at that. But I just think coaches at all levels don't really know how to handle their goalies unless they were one. And like, for instance, the Flames, I said to Kelly Rudy, do they ever consult you on anything to do with goaltending? And Kelly's like, no. And I'm like, well, why would they? He's only Kelly Rudy. It's like, well, we got it. But you would think, hey, Rudes, what do you think about this? But they never do. How's the view of the Flames look from north on Highway 2?
It was pretty pleasant for most people up here prior to being shut out in back-to-back games by the Toronto Maple Leafs. We had Craig Button on my show on Tuesday, and he was the one who, I didn't even bring it up. He kind of brought it up that, if Calgary doesn't really get sorted out here, Ward could be in a little bit of trouble. And a healthy Markstrom, consistently moving forward, I think changes a lot of that. Maybe he has to put on a Harudi bandana or something too. That'd be cool. Take it to the next level. But Calgary's, I think they're better than they have been, especially as of late. Like, Kachuk's a really good player. Johnny Gaudreau's extremely skilled. Monahan still has a ton of game left in him. Maybe they just don't have the supporting cast to get it done offensively. I mean, if you look at what's happening in this North Division, and I thought this would probably be the way, which is why I had Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Toronto as my top three teams in the North, and that's because they have elite offensive talent. I mean, it's Matthews, it's Marner, it's Tavares, it's Leon and McDavid, and if you want to put Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in that mix, and then Winnipeg, I mean, the list goes on and on. You got Wheeler, you got Scheifele, you got Connor, you got Ehlers, you got Dubois. So these are the teams that are emerging, because these are the teams that have the elite top-end talent in a division where goaltending is questionable in some spots, here in Edmonton, in Vancouver. I mean, Ottawa, Montreal, the way Carey Price has been playing, that hasn't been great either, really. And then a bunch of blue lines that are, some of them are pretty good, but nothing's really great. So I think having those top-end guys is really what's going to separate the top part of the division compared to the lower part of the division.
Oh, for sure. Wayne in Victoria's watching. He says, man, the analysis is great with Dustin and Rod. Goaltending is so important in the playoffs. The goalie can steal a game or two if you have the right guy. From Ricardo, he's a Ticats fan. He says, Dwayne Roloson had a great run as a vet for Tampa in 2011, so it's not completely out of the question. What, to bring Roloson back? They might have to. Chris Bird is watching in Toronto, and he says, Ben Steiner, he's a U Sports reporter, reports Mike Babcock is meeting with the Montreal Canadiens today. The two sides have been talking since last week.
About what?
Yeah, pardon me?
Pardon me? What? What are they talking about?
About head coach. Benny DM'd me that tweet, by the way. He just reported that Mike Babcock's meeting with the Canadiens today, obviously about the head coaching job. Honestly, I thought it was a long shot when I put in our poll last week, could Babcock coach the Habs? What was your take on the fallout last week? I was blown away by the anti-Babcock sentiment out there in hockey. Dustin, maybe I
wasn't too surprised by it. Like when you see how it ended in Toronto and where we're at today with how you handle players and obviously what went on there. With that being said, I think he's going through the right steps here with the U of S. I think that's a great landing spot for him for a little while. I think it's good for that program. I think in the end, maybe he just needed a little bit of a wake-up call. Maybe he doesn't see it that way or not. Because for the longest time, I mean, depending on who you talk to, we know there are certain people who don't like him. But, in the hockey circles, from a media perspective, a lot of people, you look at the job that Mike Babcock had done, and, he had the Stanley Cup. It was a while ago and had a chance to be part of these really good Team Canadas. This Montreal news, Babcock doesn't speak French, does he? Am I missing something here? He doesn't speak French, does he? There's no way. I mean, you're not getting that job unless you speak French. There's no way Montreal would do that.
You would think that's long been the policy, but as somebody pointed out to me, the Alouettes head coach doesn't speak French, nor does what the former Impact, whatever they've changed the team to. That might be a misnomer that you have to speak French. How do you spell win in French? W-I-N. Victoire? If you win a Stanley Cup, what's more important here? Winning a Stanley Cup or speaking French? The other hasn't worked too well since 1993.
I agree with you, Rod. I agree. We were saying it, when they made that coaching change last week. I mean, there's a lot of good coaches out there that don't speak French. You can get a translator. I mean, there are ways you can make it work. And I agree with you on that, but I just don't think the organization would do it. I'd be pretty stunned because the French-speaking media there would absolutely tear them apart. And I don't know if they need that.
Yeah. Gagne is French for win, by the way. Dave, Gagne. There you go. Jason, again in red here, says Freddie is confirmed as the starter per Mark Masters of TSN. Can I lob this last one at you, Dusty, because I know you're a busy guy? My Scotia North Division All-Star team is McDavid at center, Besser on the right wing, Austin Matthews on left wing. The defense is Shea Weber and who else did I say? Morgan Riley, and starting in goal, Connor Hellebuck. Alan May played this game in hour one, and his Mass Mutual East Division starting is Nick Backstrom at center, Pasternak and Panarin on the wings, Chara and Carlson on D, Varlamov in goal. Who would be your Scotia North Division starting six in the virtual fictional All-Star game? You and I love Sims so much.
Yeah, that's right. Connor McDavid obviously is there. I guess we have to go winger on each side. Is that what we're looking at? Because if we didn't, I'd throw Draisaitl in there. So I would go Marner, Matthews, McDavid. Mind you, that's probably what I would do up front if we're not going to put Draisaitl in as the center. Yep. And then I would honestly give Darnell Nurse some love on the back end. I think Nurse has been absolutely terrific. I'd probably go something like, maybe I get crazy and go Nurse and Petrie. Like Jeff Petrie's having a phenomenal season as well. And then between the pipes, I'd still go with Connor Hellebuck. I think Hellebuck's a phenomenal goalie in Winnipeg and really gives them an advantage, I think, especially over the Oilers and the Canucks. And, well, we'll see what happens with the Flames and Markstrom. But, yeah, that's what I would lay out. I think that's a fun little task, though. I like that.
A lot of fun. You could spend a lot of time going by division through that. And by the way, the reason he put Panarin on left wing is I said you can't put Crosby to left wing. He's like, okay. So you went with Artemi Panarin, who isn't even playing right now. But Dustin, keep it up. Enjoy the game tonight. We're following everything you do and loving it. I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys. Have a good rest of your show.
TSN 1260 Edmonton's Dustin Nielson.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.